This is the heartwarming family story of a couple in their 20s from Baltimore, Maryland, who are struggling with infertility. Their lives change forever when they miraculously rescue and care for 4 newborn babies discovered at a municipal landfill. Before we begin, please subscribe and like our channel. It is a great source of strength for us. Baltimore, Maryland. The very name of the city evokes a rich history forged at the meeting point of river and bay, a place of brick-and-mortar resilience etched with the deep wrinkles of American industry and change. For centuries, the waters of the Patapsco River flowed into the vast expanse of the Chesapeake Bay, creating a harbor that birthed a nation. The lives of the people who depended on this port were sometimes colored with the pride of a thriving shipyard, and at other times stained with the hardship of economic downturns and the fight for a better future. It was a city that had weathered booms and busts, a place that held both the gritty vitality of a working-class town and the complex sorrows of its past. Now, it was a city with a deep story, where the historic row houses of old neighborhoods and the dynamic gleam of the redeveloped inner harbor coexisted in a strange and beautiful contrast. In a quiet corner of this city, in a neighborhood of modest townhomes, where a strong sense of community still lingered, lived a young couple named Jack Sullivan and Emily Carter. Jack was an indispensable veteran welder at the local shipyard, a contractor known for his steady hand. The sparks that bloomed from his torch were like a force of life connecting cold steel to create the skeletons of massive ships. The beads of sweat on his forehead were a badge of his sincerity, and the gentle smile that appeared on his sun-weathered face inspired trust in those around him. His wife Emily was a freelance illustrator with a quiet disposition. In her small sunlit studio in a spare bedroom, the pictures born from her delicate fingertips held a warmth and loveliness like scenes from a classic children's book. She cultivated a simple happiness by selling her art on Etsy or sharing her heartfelt works on social media. A single savory bowl of Emily's homemade beef stew was enough to melt away all of Jack's daily fatigue. And when Jack came home from work with a warm, salty pretzel from a downtown vendor, Emily would smile as brightly as a young girl. They were a beautiful young couple who cherished and loved each other, a picture-perfect pair. However, in a corner of their hearts, there was always a chillingly cold shadow. It was the desperate longing for a child. Though they had been married for over 5 years, the child they so eagerly awaited never came. They visited specialists at the best hospitals, underwent countless tests, and repeated the painful and expensive process of IVF treatments several times, but each attempt ended in heart-wrenching despair and bitter tears. Every night, Emily would weep silently in a corner of her studio, surrounded by her whimsical drawings of children. Jack could only wrap his arms around his wife's frail shoulders and try to soothe his own burning heartache. This was especially difficult during holidays when they visited Jack's parents in their small town in rural Pennsylvania. His stubbornly traditional father would openly ask, "So when are you two going to finally give us some grandkids? A man needs someone to carry on his name." At times like these, Emily would look down at her plate and Jack's heart would sink even heavier. It was one day in early summer, just after a week of relentless thunderstorms had ended. The sky was a piercingly clear blue, as if the downpour had never happened, but the ground soaked from days of rain was emitting a humid, earthy heat. Jack, under an emergency directive from his company, was assigned with a few colleagues to clean up debris from a materials warehouse damaged by the flash floods and transport it to a massive municipal landfill on the outskirts of the county. It was a place where all the garbage from the city gathered for its final stop, truly the end of the line for everything discarded by the world. A nauseating stench that paralyzed the nose emanated from the mountain-like piles of waste. Giant garbage trucks constantly coming and going kicked up clouds of dust and roared. Whenever an old excavator dug into the trash mountain, unidentifiable black liquid would ooze out and swarms of flies buzzed around it. There, Jack witnessed a landscape of despair created by humanity. He was continuing his work, his body drenched in sweat, and was just about to clear the last pile of refuse. It was then that a sound reached Jack's ears, very faint, but unmistakably the sound of a living creature. At first, he tried to ignore it, thinking it must be the desperate cry of a starving stray cat or an abandoned dog. But his feet, as if of their own accord, began to move slowly toward the source of the sound. And there he was confronted with a tragic scene so unbelievable he couldn't trust his own eyes, a sight he didn't want to believe. In a corner of a tangled heap of black plastic trash bags, torn cardboard boxes, and rotting food, wrapped haphazardly in a tattered, dirty fleece blanket, lay 4 newborn babies. They were huddled together as if they were a single lump, relying on each other's faint warmth. Their faces were smeared with dust and grime, and their tiny limbs hung limply. Their signs of life were so faint it was hard to tell if they were even breathing. "Oh, no." A groan and a stifled cry escaped Jack's lips. What kind of heartless human being could have thrown these fragile lives into this hellish place? Jack's mind went blank. A fierce anger, as if the blood was flowing backward in his veins, and a sorrow so profound it felt like his heart was being carved out, crashed over him like a wave. Forgetting all danger and his own situation, he instinctively ran towards the babies. Like a man possessed, he gently wrapped his trembling hands around them. As he held them, the incredibly small and cold bodies, along with a very faint but definite warmth, were transmitted through his work shirt. In that fleeting moment, Jack instinctively felt that this was not a mere coincidence, but an undeniable destiny bestowed upon him by heaven. Without hesitation, he took off his thick work jacket, wrapped the babies in it, and held them in his arms as if they were the most precious treasures in the world. Frantically, he called an Uber and returned home holding the babies, looking like a man in a daze. When Emily saw him, his work clothes covered in dirt, his unfocused eyes, and the 4 tiny lives sleeping soundly in his arms, it was as if her breath had stopped. Time seemed to freeze. She stood there, stunned, unable to say a word or make a move. Only after Jack, in a cracked and trembling voice, managed to explain the horrific situation at the landfill, did Emily's rigid body finally crumble. She collapsed to the floor and began to cry her heart out like a small child. Within her sobs swirled a storm of emotions, deep despair and anger at humanity, wrenching pity for the abandoned babies, and the raw sorrow of their own desperate longing for a child. They didn't know if this was a cruel test from the heavens or a final chance, but one thing was certain: they could not turn their backs on these tiny lives. That night the couple stayed awake. They carefully washed the babies' dirty bodies. They rushed to a 24-hour convenience store for formula, mixed it with warm water, and gently placed the small bottles to the babies' lips. The babies were so small and fragile, but the way their tiny mouths struggled to suck on the bottles showed a desperate will to live that made the couple's hearts ache even more. As soon as the sun rose, they went to the local police precinct and reported everything. The young officer who took the report was initially in disbelief, unable to hide his shock. But seeing the baby's pitiful condition and the sincere, desperate look in the couple's eyes, he sensed the gravity of the situation. He set aside his stiff professional demeanor and did his best to handle the case from the couple's perspective, carefully guiding them through the necessary legal procedures and support options, including contacting Child Protective Services, CPS. However, to make matters worse, their next-door neighbor, Mrs. Gable, who was well aware of the couple's struggles, somehow heard the shocking news and began spreading it all over the neighborhood. Can you believe it? The Sullivans, that young couple, they just picked up 4 babies from somewhere. They said they were found at the dump, for heaven's sake. Do you think those kids are even okay? For someone who can't even have her own kids, she sure is greedy. Who knows if she'll end up ruining those babies' lives too. Distorted and exaggerated rumors originating from Mrs. Gable's mouth spread like wildfire. The couple, while worrying about the babies, had to endure another deep wound from the cold stares and irresponsible words of others. In the end, the police investigation yielded no clues to the baby's parents. The relevant agencies, following current laws and procedures, began the cold process of placing the children into the foster care system, likely separating them. The day a caseworker from the Department of Social Services came to their home with the paperwork, Emily, on the verge of falling to her knees, clung to him and pleaded through tears. "Please, please let us raise these children. These children are the last hope heaven has sent us. We will risk our lives to raise them to be happy." Jack, a proud man who had never begged for anything in his life, also stood with his head bowed and pleaded earnestly. But the wall of bureaucracy was high and cold. A particularly strict supervisor from Child Protective Services, a man named Mr. Peterson, who prized procedure above all, was firm. "Considering your current financial situation and your complete lack of experience in raising 4 infants simultaneously, certifying you as foster parents is highly irregular and risky. For the children's safety and healthy development, the state's position is that they should receive care in a professional and stable state-sanctioned foster environment," he said with a resolute and cold attitude. The couple was engulfed in a despair that made their world go dark, but they could not give up here. To do so would be like giving up not only on the babies' lives, but on their own as well. Sleepless nights continued. Their hearts would drop at every small breath the babies took, and they were constantly anxious that the children would be taken away. Jack worked hard at the shipyard during the day and took catnaps at night while watching over the babies. Emily spent her days wrestling with the 4 infants, her body aching, but the mental pressure and anxiety exhausted her even more. Despite it all, they looked into each other's eyes and gave each other strength. "Honey, let's be a little stronger. Look at their eyes. If not us, who will protect them?" Emily's trembling voice prompted Jack to grip her hand even tighter. They had nowhere left to retreat. Just then, as if someone had blown a warm breath on a dying ember, miraculous hands of help began to appear one by one. Emily mustered the courage to start a blog. Alongside her simple drawings, she wrote with tears about the heartbreaking story of the landfill quadruplets and their desperate love for the children. Overnight, the post went viral. Thousands, then tens of thousands of people read her post and responded with a flood of supportive comments. A GoFundMe page they set up was flooded with donations of money, along with boxes of formula-clean baby clothes and toys arriving at their doorstep. The pure, warm-hearted support from people they had never met seeped into the couple's frozen hearts like a ray of sunshine, giving them immense courage. In the midst of this, the 3rd baby, whom they had lovingly nicknamed Brooke, was rushed to the pediatric intensive care unit at Johns Hopkins Hospital with a sudden high fever and severe respiratory distress. The doctor suspected a rare bacterial pneumonia and said she needed immediate specialized treatment and an expensive antibiotic. The couple, unable to afford the massive hospital bills, could only wring their hands in despair. It was then that an anonymous benefactor secretly paid for all of Brooke's medical expenses through the hospital's foundation. It turned out he was a local entrepreneur who, due to his own memories of a difficult childhood, had been anonymously supporting sick children from disadvantaged backgrounds. He had learned of the couple's plight through Emily's blog and left only a short message: "If I can save even one more life, that is enough." Brooke's attending physician, Dr. Marcus Evans, cared for her as if she were his own child, staying by her side day and night and providing the best possible treatment. He also offered the couple warm encouragement and medical advice, and worked closely with the hospital's social work team to find various medical assistance programs they could access. Jack's co-workers pooled their money to help organizing a meal train and throwing a small, love-filled baby shower for them at the Union Hall. Jack's normally gruff but kind foreman Frank handed him a thick gift card to Target and a cash bonus. "Jack, I knew you had it in you," he said. "A real man doesn't easily give up on what he believes in. This is a little something from the crew for your kids." He even went to company management, explained the couple's situation, and persuaded them to grant Jack a more flexible work schedule for a while. Even Jack's stubborn parents, who had initially been vehemently opposed, had a change of heart. After seeing their tiny granddaughter Brooke struggling to breathe on a small ventilator through the ICU glass, and witnessing their son and daughter-in-law holding her small hand and spending the night in tears, they deeply regretted their harsh words and became their most devoted supporters. The fastidious supervisor from CPS, Mr. Peterson, after personally witnessing the couple's sincere efforts, the overwhelming support from the community, and above all, their deep and devoted love for the 4 children, on several occasions finally made his decision. He fast-tracked their foster-to-adopt certification, completed all legal and administrative procedures, and officially entrusted all 4 children into the care of Jack and Emily. This entire process was a series of miracles, like something out of a movie. The couple gave the children precious names filled with meaning. The first was named Skylar for the wide-open sky of possibilities ahead of him. The second was River for the strength and persistence of a flowing current. The third was Brook for the gentle, life-giving sound of a stream. And the fourth was Aurora for the beautiful new dawn she represented. As if fulfilling the wishes in their names, the children enveloped in all the world's warm love and encouragement grew up healthy and bright, like 4 young saplings shooting up toward the sun. Time flowed ceaselessly like the current of the Patapsco. The 4 tiny babies discovered in a heap of trash had grown into lovely children whose chatter and innocent laughter filled the entire house, so precious they were the center of their parents' world. However, their journey was not always sunny and smooth. As the children started elementary school, they began to vaguely sense their special birth background. Sometimes they were deeply hurt by the thoughtless stares of others or the cruel teasing of thoughtless children. A particularly painful incident occurred when the curious and active second child, River, was in the 2nd grade. A classmate told him, "You're a trash baby. You were abandoned at the dump, and my mom said you're not a real family." River was so shocked that for several days he barely ate and adamantly refused to go to school. When Jack and Emily heard this, they felt a pain as if their hearts were being torn to shreds. But in front of their son, they pretended to be calm and did not try to hide the truth or scold him. Instead, they held River warmly in their arms, patted his back for a long time, and then looking into his tear-filled eyes, they spoke in a calm but firm voice. "River, Mom and Dad have something very important to tell you. A long, long time ago, Mom and Dad were desperately waiting for the most beautiful baby angels in the world. Then, one day, like a true miracle, heaven sent 4 baby angels to us. And those baby angels are you, Skylar, Brook, and Aurora. It doesn't matter where or how you came to us. What's important is knowing how much Mom and Dad love you right now and what precious treasures you are to us. You are the greatest gifts from heaven who came to us in the most special way in the world." The couple immediately went to see River's teacher, honestly explained the entire situation, and earnestly asked for cooperation between the school and home to heal their son's hurt heart and restore his self-esteem. The teacher deeply empathized with their sincerity and conducted a special lesson for the entire class on the preciousness of life and understanding that families come in all shapes and sizes. She also gave River careful consideration and support so he could happily readjust to school life. Thanks to the wise and warm efforts of their parents and teacher, River and his siblings were able to courageously overcome their pain and scars. They grew up to be even stronger and more positive, cherishing each other and becoming incredibly resilient. They came to be proud of the fact that they had a slightly different special start than most children and boldly carved out their own lives against the world's prejudices. The four children grew up, each shining with their own unique personality. Skylar the first was big-hearted and thoughtful, always looking after his younger siblings. River, with his boundless energy and curiosity, was the life of the party. Brooke, with her gentle and delicate sensitivity, was skilled at understanding the feelings of others. And Aurora showed a special talent for art and music, revealing an artist's soul. The couple respected each child's individuality, encouraging and supporting them to pursue their dreams freely within the sturdy fence of love. Before they knew it, Skylar, River, Brooke, and Aurora had grown into fine young adults, each with their own dreams. They began to walk their own paths to share the immense love and grace they had received with others in the world. Skylar, who had been deeply moved by the dedication of social workers who helped children in situations like his own, unhesitatingly majored in social work. After graduating, he opened his own shelter for at-risk youth who were forced onto the streets without family protection. He became a reliable pillar and a warm older brother, embracing their wounded hearts and helping them start new lives. He listened to each youth's story constantly, encouraging and supporting them so they wouldn't lose hope in the world. River never for a moment forgot the memory of the desolate and desperate landfill where they first met the world. He chose the path of an environmental engineer to breathe life back into abandoned and polluted land. He majored in urban regeneration and ecological restoration in college, then returned to his hometown of Baltimore and dedicated his youth and passion to an ambitious project, transforming that very landfill into a beautiful, eco-friendly park for the citizens. To him, it wasn't just a waste disposal site. It was a meaningful space where their lives began, a land that had to be healed and restored. Brooke, with her delicate and warm sensibility, became a music therapist, using music to heal people's aching hearts. She approached those suffering from loss and those with deep shadows in their hearts with beautiful melodies and sincere empathy, offering a warm hand of comfort and healing to their frozen souls. Her guitar and songs lit a small spark of hope for people in despair, and her ability to cry and empathize with them moved many deeply. The youngest, Aurora, who had shown a remarkable talent for drawing, became an art teacher. She dedicated herself to instilling creativity and confidence in children from underserved city schools. She became a messenger of hope, helping their small dreams blossom in beautiful colors. She painted vibrant murals on drab city walls with the children and created wonderful works of art from recycled materials, awakening the artistic soul hidden in their hearts. In this way, the four siblings, each in their own place, became beacons of light in the dark and neglected corners of the world, drawing from their own experiences of overwhelming love and healing to give deep inspiration and the courage to live to many people. River's project to create an eco-friendly park at the landfill was anything but smooth. He faced fierce opposition and conspiracies from a massive corporation, Apex Development, which wanted to buy the land cheaply for huge profits, and from corrupt local politicians who protected their dark ambitions. The vicious CEO of Apex Development, Jonathan Price, used his vast capital to hire lobbyists and spread misinformation to mislead public opinion. He tried to deceive residents with the slick logic that a large-scale industrial complex was essential for the local economy's development, painting River and his colleagues as idealistic dreamers, hindering progress. For a time, River fell into deep despair, but he never gave up. With the full support and dedicated help of his siblings, Skylar's experience in community organizing, and excellent leadership, Brooke's cultural resistance through benefit concerts that moved people's hearts, and Aurora's powerful visual campaigns with infographics that captured public attention, and above all, fueled by the fiery support of local residents united to protect their community, he fought back tenaciously and fiercely. Skylar went door to door collecting signatures and organized rallies at City Hall. Brooke held concerts for the park that drew local media. Aurora created compelling graphics and short animations about the dangers of the proposed complex and spread them widely through social media. Ultimately, thanks to a courageous whistleblower and the persistent investigative reporting of a conscientious journalist at the Baltimore Sun, Apex Development's ugly corruption and illegal backroom deals were exposed to the world. Faced with fierce public resistance, the newly inaugurated mayor, Isabella Rossi, a woman of integrity and principle, made a dramatic decision. She completely scrapped the industrial plan and announced that the site would be developed into an eco-friendly park for the citizens. The four-leaf clover Hope Park, created there with the aspirations of the citizens, became a symbol of hope overcoming despair and a monument to the great victory of grassroots democracy. On the park's opening day, countless citizens gathered to share their joy, and River and his siblings embraced each other, tears streaming down their faces. It was not just the completion of a park, it was a great victory won by the power of love and solidarity over greed. The vast and desolate landfill, where years ago 4 babies had almost been buried in a cold pile of earth without ever seeing the light of day, was now completely transformed. Thanks to River's dedicated efforts and the aspirations of countless people, it had become the four-leaf clover Hope Park, filled with native wildflowers and green trees throughout the 4 seasons. It was reborn as a beautiful resting place and an ecological learning center loved not only by the citizens of Baltimore, but by visitors from far and wide. In the center of the park, 4 young and vibrant oak trees were planted, symbolizing the 4 children, their branches reaching out to each other for support as they stretched toward the sky. On the lawn beneath them, a small bronze statue was erected delicately, depicting the touching and poignant moment when Jack and Emily first discovered the 4 babies wrapped in a jacket. Beside it stood a modest monument engraved with these words: 4 small lives discovered in a heap of despair's ashes. Nurtured by the love of the world, they finally bloomed brilliantly into 4 flowers of hope, illuminating the world. Love creates the greatest and most brilliant miracles, even in the lowest and darkest moments of despair. This monument served as a profound reminder to all who visited the park of the true meaning of love and the sanctity of life. Jack Sullivan and Emily Carter were now crossing the threshold into middle age, with hints of silver beginning to frost their hair, but the look in their eyes as they gazed at each other was still as passionate and pure as when they first met in their 20s. On weekends, they would often visit the four-leaf clover Hope Park and sit side by side on a worn wooden bench under the 4 oak trees that were like extensions of themselves, quietly reminiscing about the tumultuous years, stained with laughter and tears that had passed. The hot tears they shed while holding each other every night, unable to have a child. The indescribable shock and thrill of first discovering the 4 babies in a pile of trash. The countless sleepless nights they spent miraculously raising the 4 children amidst the world's prejudices and financial difficulties. As all those trials and tribulations, and the small moments of joy and gratitude that blossomed within them flashed by like a vivid panorama, a gentle smile would form on their faces, and warm tears of gratitude would silently well up in their eyes. They knew that the 4 small seeds they had rescued from despair and embraced with love had now grown into 4 wonderful and beautiful young adults. They had blossomed into fragrant flowers, each in their own place making the world a warmer and better place to live. And they knew that all the pain and trials they had courageously endured had become a precious fertilizer, irreplaceable in helping them realize a greater love and a deeper gratitude. The 4 flowers of hope that miraculously bloomed from a heap of ashes now spread their beautiful fragrance and seeds of hope throughout the world. Their story remains an eternally moving tale that proves the great power of love and the dignity of life, continuing to resonate deeply and beautifully in the weary hearts of all who live in this era. And that resonance, becoming a seed of another love and another hope, will surely bloom new flowers all over the world. Thank you for watching today. If you enjoyed the story, please subscribe and like.